Okay, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in today to this exclusive Trend Watching Premium webinar. My name is Maxwell Luthi, the Director of Trends and Insights, and I'm going to be talking to you today about truthful consumerism in food and beverage. So here's a selfie I took just moments ago, and here is the view from our penthouse office in New York. Okay, I am deceiving you, and that is the theme of the moment. That was not a picture of me, and that is not the view from our office in New York, although we do have a lovely office over here. Because of deception like this, trust in major institutions such as business, media, and the government is at all-time lows. I'm sure you've heard the expression by now. We are in the post-truth era. So we were very excited to release to you earlier this year, Truthful Consumerism, the first of our quarterly trend publications. So we're exploring the future of consumerism in a world of polarization, populism, and post-truth. How did we get here? Well, 2016 was full of surprises, in particular, one big orange surprise. And no, I'm not talking about mac and Cheetos, the most wild hybrid snack you've ever seen. I'm talking about the Donald himself. And of course, other surprises include Brexit, Dilma's impeachment in Brazil. The Syrian civil war continues. You have a failed coup in Turkey. It was a messy, messy year. Of course, you're all familiar with that. And you've recognized that we're now in a new moment, one characterized by polarization, new populisms, anger and frustration. You can feel the frustration in the air. And of course, plummeting trust and post-truth. But what should brands do? This is not going to be a webinar about the socio-political implications of the post-truth movement. What we're instead exploring at Trend Watching is what this means for you. And in particular, on this webinar, we're looking at how it impacts food and beverage brands. And the good news is we remain optimistic at Trend Watching. We believe the future still belongs to those who believe in progress. And you can achieve that progress through your own innovations. So in the full report, which you can find on Trend Watching Premium, we explore 5 key truths shaping the future. First of all, transparency will continue to rule the marketplace. Consumers' expectations around transparency of the supply chain, of pricing, of quality, will only ramp up going forward. Our second truth, aspiration, continues to drive so much of consumer behavior as they strive to climb higher in their lives. And thirdly, positive impact is a truth that going forward, brands that have a positive impact on the self, society, and the planet will do better than those that don't. Fourthly, at times, it doesn't feel like it, but a shift towards greater tolerance is the general direction of travel. And then fifthly, empowerment, a sort of hybrid of the other 4 truths. Those brands that seek to empower consumers will do better than those that don't. So, in case you're wondering, well, this is Trend Watching. I've grown accustomed to the 140 trends that you track and the 16 megatrends in your trend framework. And now you're coming at me with the truths. The truth is these truths are all trends in their own way. They do tie into our greater trend ecosystem, including the megatrend framework, including the 120 plus trends that we track in the inspiration dashboard. So you can breathe a sigh of relief in that respect. And at the end of this webinar, I will show you how the truths tie back into our wider methodology. Now, as I said, if you want to read the full quarterly publication that you have access to as premium clients, you can dive in to this part of the premium dashboard and read the full report. But we're going to focus on just one specific truth, because what we've done for 5 of the quarterly industry updates for the first time ever is shine a spotlight on this quarterly theme. So we're going to look at one of the truths that has the biggest implications in food and beverage. Now, what is that truth? Well, the real truth is the pumpkin spice latte product hybrid trend peaked in 2016. But no, that's not what we're going to focus on today. We are going to focus on truth number 3, positive impact. The future of food and beverage brands in a post-truth world, those that make the world a better place will succeed. So yes, there will still be consumers who want to have Haribo for breakfast and have a negative impact on their health. There will still be consumers who don't care about the environmental implications of their consumerism. Some consumers will even eat this delicious little endangered fellow. And you're going to have consumers who don't care about exploitation in the supply chain. But the overarching truth is those brands that have a positive impact on the self, society, and the planet will do better than those that don't. Now, to really understand this, we're not just going to, do a typical kind of keynote via webinar approach here. I'm not just going to preach at you. I'm actually going to work with you to unpack this truth using the consumer trend canvas, because trends are useless if you don't act on them and contextualize them in terms of your own business. So we're going to do that together. We're going to apply the truth. We're going to apply this truth of positive impact using this tool. And boy, oh boy, do I love this tool. I've had the pleasure of working with the government of Dubai, the World Wildlife Fund, 3M, the Walt Disney Imagineers, and many other clients to take trends that might seem quite remote or high level and, break them down, get to grips with them, and then apply them and come up with new business initiatives. So today you're getting this sort of double whammy of a grounding in this core truth of positive impact in your industry, but you should also be armed in how to use this tool to run workshops and brainstorms of your own going forward. So when we start with the canvas, we always start with the left-hand side. It's not entirely sequential. You can move around. Typically, you print these out as big as possible and use Post-it notes. So it's not a sort of paint by numbers, one foot in front of the other process. However, we are going to go through it sequentially here, and we're going to start with inspiration. And this is easy enough to understand. This is where we ask ourselves, what businesses are doing well in this space? Who's impressing us within our industry and beyond? Who's inspiring us within the trend of positive impact? So I've pulled out some examples for you today. It should be of no surprise to you that 70% of consumers around the world now make conscious dietary choices to help prevent conditions like obesity, diabetes, and high cholesterol. Anyone walking through the aisles of a supermarket can see the hundreds of thousands of products, which claim to be healthier than their neighbors on the shelf. However, we're not just going to be inspired in this case by brands that seek to have a positive impact on your health, but those that make the experience still something enjoyable, still something that consumers should cherish. So here we have No Bones, our first example, our first dose of inspiration. This is a vegan butchery in Sao Paulo. So if you're going vegan and you're sad to be giving up on the ritual, the experience of going to the butchers and barbecuing, which of course is, how much they love meat in Brazil. The ritual is key. So here they're saying you can have a positive impact on yourself, but still enjoy the experience, from these plant-based, meat-free sausages, hamburgers, and barbecue products. So that's our first dose of inspiration. Now, how about positive impact on the planet? DB Breweries in New Zealand found out that 2/3 of the world's beaches are depleting, and this is in part due to sand being transported and carted away to be used in construction or in pharmaceutical production. So to combat this, they came up with a really unique innovation. They created these special vending machines where you can sort of drop your empty beer bottle into the machine and it will grind it down and create high quality sand, which can be used as building materials instead of sand from the beaches. So they're protecting the beaches, they're having a positive impact on the planet. You get to drink beer and feel good about yourself knowing that you are protecting the world's beaches through that behavior. And what if you want to have a positive impact on society? I said this ties into the self, the planet, and society. Well, it turns out that 62% of Americans between 18 and 24 didn't vote in the 2012 election, and that's far more than were voting in the election of 1964, according to the US Census Bureau. So Doritos heard about this, and they decided, they're not going to pick a side in the election, but they do want to encourage participation. And their whole strategy of doing the bold thing, encouraging customers to do the bold thing. Here they were saying the bold thing is to vote. So they created 6 vending machines, which they deployed at college campuses around the US. And they also created a microsite where if you said you hadn't registered to vote, you could get a bag of chips, but that bag of chips was full of it was full of flavorless pieces of cardboard in the shape of Doritos. So quite a painful way to learn the lesson of if you don't register to vote, you don't get a choice. So those are our, 3 inspirations of, and there's hundreds of examples I could have pulled out from our database and thousands of brands that you will have seen operating in this space. So feel free, if you workshop this trend, to choose your own inspiration. But I just want to show you how the tool works and keep moving through it. So as I said, you can always, fire up the inspiration dashboard that you have access to on TrendWatching Premium, filter it by the food and beverage industry, or perhaps add in a few other industries and search for other, inspiration within this space of positive impact. You can do what I did in preparing for this webinar and create a project. So this is a really handy tool that we added recently to the premium service. If you've not used it, I highly recommend it. You can bookmark the examples that you like and keep them in folders, which you can then share with colleagues. So perhaps you want to do that when you are considering positive impact, this massive truth. You can bookmark the innovations within this space that inspire your organization. So we've done our first segment of the canvas. We've seen what brands are inspiring us, but here we ask, what basic needs does this trend address? Every trend that we track at TrendWatching taps into core human needs which don't change from month to month or season to season. The desire for status, the desire for connection, the desire for love, these are not going away. And this is how we know our trends aren't fads. They tap into these fundamental human needs. So what fundamental needs is, this shift towards positive impact meeting? Well, first of all, of course, it's the desire to feel good about yourself, to eat healthily, to feel healthy, to feel like you're doing the right things. So products, and services that have a positive impact on yourself will help you meet that core basic need. And then second of all, the vast majority of consumers and human beings in general want to belong to what they see as a fair and sustainable society. So brands that are operating within the space of having a positive impact can meet that fundamental basic need. Now, I know the basic needs are not that challenging. If you're thinking, Max, tell me something more surprising, this is too easy, that's intentional. The basic needs should be really intuitive to you when you're workshopping. They should be very, very simple, because it's not the basic needs themselves, it's what happens when they bump up against drivers of change that is interesting. So we have these 2 basic needs of feeling good about yourself and being part of a fair and sustainable society. Nothing too surprising there, but what happens when it bumps up against drivers of change? That's what we're always looking for as trend analysts. And we split the drivers into shifts. These are sort of long-term occurrences, things that are a long time in the making, and triggers, things that can happen in an instant and change the marketplace and change consumer expectations. So let's start with the shifts. Well, today there's been this huge shift where 73% of consumers believe brands have a responsibility to do more than simply generate profit. There's been this shift towards meaningful consumerism, and that should impact how you do business. It's not just about profit. It's not just providing food as a treat, something decadent, or food as fuel, but it's about, being there in a meaningful way for consumers. A second big shift is away from some of these legacy, some of these massive brands in CPG markets, whether it's beauty or food and beverage. You see some of these huge brands losing market share, and it's shifting to niche players, to new entrants, or to clean slate brands. These are the 21st century startups, that are launched with the ethics and the social expectations of today baked in. Companies like Kind, founded in 2004, obviously they launched the Kind movement in 2008. Everything about Kind, sort of screams, I have the sort of modern ethical values of today literally baked into the company. Another example would be Blue Apron. They really meet the checklist of new expectations. So this is, the meal delivery service. They're hugely successful in the US. They deliver 8 million meals a month, and they tick all of the boxes. Literally on the website, you can see farm fresh, seasonal produce, meat with no added hormones, sustainably sourced seafood, everything else you need, perfectly portioned so you don't waste any food. This is a clean slate brand. It's a new business model. It's a new way of thinking about the supply chain. They try and work closely with farmers, and it doesn't have any of the baggage that major companies have associated with it. Of course, it does have this rather strange way of packaging an egg, which received a lot of ridicule online. It's like an overprotective single-use egg packaging scenario. However, moving on from that, another clean slate brand, of course, Chobani, with the most lovable CEO in the world, who knocked Yoplait off the #1 yogurt spot after only 12 years in business. That's not just because of their product quality, it's also because they scream to consumers, we are a clean slate brand, we are a human brand. The CEO gave over 10% of the company to his employees, and they had their most profitable year ever last year. So you've seen this shift, assuming that the new entrants in the marketplace are better than Big Food, they're better than the legacy brands. I'm not saying that's necessarily fair, but that is consumer perception. It's something we touch on a lot, trend watching. So those are our shifts, and then we're going to look at what the triggers are. So triggers can be any time a new sustainable alternative comes onto the scene. As soon as consumers hear about it or read about it, they begin to expect it. So it could be something like this company, the Not Company from Chile, who use an AI platform they've named Giuseppe. And Giuseppe's skill is that he can find plant-based ingredients and combinations to replace meat-based food products. So that's using AI to generate better products. That's changing consumers' expectations. Another example of a more sustainable alternative, well, this is from a Dutch company called Nature and More, and they brand vegetables. They've been trialing this with the ICA supermarkets in Sweden. They are currently using a laser to, literally brand, to sear the skin of sweet potatoes and organic avocados. And why are they doing this? Well, it turns out it uses 1% of the energy that adding those tiny little stickers to fruit and veg does. So it could be something that small that is showing consumers that there's a way to reduce their impact, one tiny sticker at a time. And of course, you have, as other triggers, high-profile awareness campaigns. So a documentary might come out that goes after sugar, and the sugar lobby. A film like Fed Up, or something might come after, the meat industry, like Cowspiracy. If you haven't seen Cowspiracy, it's worth a watch. Some flawed science in places, but these raise awareness about the negative impacts of traditional food production and consumption, to the point where more and more consumers know things like 1.3 billion tons, roughly 1/3 of the food produced in the world every year gets lost or wasted, and that's according to the UN. So more and more consumers are aware of this, and of course you have social media pressure from your friends and family. I kid you not, this is my sister-in-law posted about a documentary which shows you the dark side of dairy, and there on the bottom you can see my aunt Susan Luthi. Shout out Auntie Susan. Not a client, so she's not listening right now, but I'll let her know I gave her a shout out. That is that sort of 360-degree pressure you can get via social media to change your behavior, and not just from your friends and families, but this is, Instagram's most famous vegan. You're going to have celebrity influencers pressuring you to change your behavior and shift to products, services, and practices with fewer negative impacts. So we have our drivers of change. We have this desire for more meaningful consumerism, a massive shift that you should all be aware of. We have this shift, this assumption that startups and clean slate brands are better than those legacy massive companies that thrived in the 20th century. And then you have sustainable alternatives coming out, on a daily basis, showing consumers there's a better way. That is a trigger. Another trigger, high profile awareness campaigns and social media pressure. So that's why it's picking up pace. That's why this is happening now. That's why this truth of positive impact is more urgent than ever before in the food and beverage industry. Now, what happens when basic needs bump up against drivers of change, against massive shifts? You get points of tension. You get new emerging expectations. And these are the heart of every trend. This is why if you don't keep up with the trend, if you don't act on the trend, you fall behind expectations. So now 87% of young people believe brands have the power to make change, and 84% of them think brands have more power to make change than the government. So that's a massive expectation that consumers can outsource responsibilities to big brands, not to these guys in government, not to these people running the world, but to the companies they buy from. That's you tuned into the webinar. It's your responsibility. The expectation is that you are responsible to have a positive impact on the consumer's self. You are responsible to have a positive impact on the society in which you operate. You, as a brand, are responsible to have a positive impact on the planet. This is not niche. You have a company the size of Unilever with hundreds of brands in its portfolio, saying those like Hellmann's and Ben & Jerry's that have integrated sustainability into their purpose and products are growing 30% faster than the rest of the business. So this isn't just the right thing to do ethically, it's the right thing to do in terms of business. Keith Weed of Unilever said this research confirms that sustainability isn't nice to have, it's an imperative. So there you have it, at the heart of this trend, the emerging expectations that the consumer can outsource their responsibility for making the world a better place to you in terms of personal impact on their health and well-being, in terms of social impact, in terms of eco impact, in terms of sustainable solutions. So we have fully unpacked the left side of the trend. We've analyzed it. We understand, what companies are inspiring us, what companies are meeting our basic needs, what are the basic needs at the heart of it, what drivers of change are making it happen now, what are the emerging expectations. We've gone through all of that. And when you do this in a workshop, you're ready to get to the right-hand side of the canvas where you apply it. This is where you interrogate the trend in terms of your own business. What are the opportunities? What are the unique challenges your business faces now that you've gotten to grips with the trend? So the first question you can ask yourself is, what's the innovation target? If we're going to take action, if we're going to do something, what shape or form does that look like? And here again, we can turn to some other businesses for inspiration. We can see that you can have a positive impact through your product design. Ali Cola is a company from Germany, launched in February of this year after a politician said something racist, and they created a product line of Coca-Cola in 6 different shades that tastes identical to show that appearances can be deceiving and we're all the same on the inside. So that is a product created with a positive social impact in mind. You can have a positive impact with your packaging, of course. Here we have Domino's in Russia recognizing that consumers are increasingly concerned about food waste, but that doesn't stop people from leaving behind the crust on the pizza. And if any of you listening are those people who leave behind the crust on the pizza, we will forever disagree. How could you possibly do that? It's the best bit. But Domino's recognizes that a large number of their customers are leaving this not so insignificant portion of food every time they order a pizza. So they created some unique packaging that can be repurposed into a bird feeder so that those birds surviving the harsh, cold Russian winters can get a top up from this packaging. So having a positive impact on the environment there, removing that consumer guilt at the same time. Your company hiring policy can be one way that you prove and demonstrate the positive impacts that you intend to make at a company. Of course, there was quite a bit of backlash from the hashtag Make America Great Again crowd over this decision, but Howard Schultz, in response to the announced travel ban of January of this year, said that the chain would hire 10,000 refugees in response, and it would prioritize those who'd served in the military. And Starbucks do this all the time. They often demonstrate the positive impact they plan to make through how they treat their partners, what they call their employees. So that is a long-term strategy for Starbucks, and perhaps it's something you can consider. Perhaps that's the innovation space for you. It's who you hire. That's how you're going to make a positive impact. Here we have Ben & Jerry's having a positive impact through an in-store promotion. Nothing complicated here, but in Brazil, they were accepting school supplies at their store locations, at their restaurants, and giving you free ice cream in return for your donation. So just a simple way to encourage people to make a positive impact on society in store. And your supply chain and retail, of course, are ripe for innovation. Everyone tuned in today could do something that would improve the impact of their supply chain. And here you have Walmart committing to sell imperfect produce. So they now sell 12 varieties of apples that may have been weathered in a hailstorm or something else that gives them the appearance of damage. Typically, consumers wouldn't buy them, but they are rebranding them as I'm perfect apples, obviously a play on words, imperfect there, and trying to change consumer behavior to recognize that these are just as good for you, just as healthy, just as delicious as those unblemished apples, so that they can reduce food waste. So we have all kinds of different ways for you to apply positive impact. It's a very broad trend. And remember, expectations are constantly ramping up. So you should be constantly asking yourself, how can we improve our supply chain? What can we do with our packaging? Is there a new product line that will have a more positive impact? Retail or an in-store promotion like we saw with Ben & Jerry's, or our hiring policy as we saw with Starbucks. There's plenty of inspiration there and all the different ways you could apply this trend. And then you can ask yourself, who can we apply this trend to? Because you're doing it for someone's benefit, right? So ask yourself, who is concerned about your impact? Perhaps it's busy parents who are, increasingly aware through documentaries and social media and beyond of the negative impacts of their consumerism, but too busy to take the actions that they hope to take. So you can help them have a positive impact. Perhaps it's amateur or aspiring chef. Perhaps it's long-term skeptics. Perhaps you are a big food brand, with decades of experience and some baggage that you'd like to shed. What can you do to turn around those long-term skeptics? What would you have to change? So we've unpacked this canvas fully together, and we've also provided you with a downloadable version of it via PowerPoint or PDF in the industry updates section if you download the Food and Beverage report for this quarter. Now, if you work through this with your own team, if you've printed it off and you've discussed this trend, you could even print off a blank copy and do it entirely on your own. You will get to this stage, the innovation stage of the canvas, and every single time I do a workshop with this tool, there are more ideas than you can shake a stick at. So you will come up with ideas on how to have a positive impact, and they will be tied back to consumers' core, fundamental human needs, but at the same time keeping ahead of changing expectations. So that could be how you figure out your next launch, how you make the difference. And if you are curious about how to use the tool, you want to download your blank copies, don't forget you can get to the Apply Toolkit section of Premium. There's a walkthrough there, or feel free to shoot me an email, max@trendwatching.com, if you have any questions about how to use the canvas. I love talking to people about this. I can maybe even jump on the phone because it really is, it's my favorite tool, and it really makes all the difference. You get so much more value out of the trends if you act on them, and this tool is designed to help you do that. So we do have time for some questions. I'll give it just a moment to see if anyone fires any over. No questions so far. No questions, no problems. That's all good. As I said, you have my email address, max@trendwatching.com, max@trendwatching. Hit me up via email if you have something specific you want to discuss at a later date. I love hearing from you, clients, and yeah, hit me up with your hardest questions, with your burning desires. But you may be wondering, are there any other truths that impact food and beverage? Of course there are, and you can find, how the other truths impact food and beverage in the industry update. So you can see that transparency, of course, is ripe full of opportunity in food and beverage. Tolerance, aspiration, and empowerment too. It's not just positive impact, but that was the most impactful truth with the most opportunity for you going forward. And I did mention, I'd say, how this all ties back into the trend ecosystem. So how does positive impact fit into our megatrend framework? If you're really hardcore and you want to do further reading within this space, there are two megatrends of particular relevance. So betterment, which is all about the desire for the universal quest for self-improvement. Of course, that's where you're going to find initiatives about bettering the self. And then better business. This is where you're going to see, initiatives to have a positive social and eco impact. And you could open one of these megatrends in the database. You can filter by food and beverage, but don't forget to look outside of your industry, because expectations transfer. There are airlines, there are automakers, retail brands, fashion brands changing expectations around positive impact that will come knocking at your door. So thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. And as I said, one last time, here's my email address, max@trendwatching.com. Please reach out to me if you have any questions, you want to go deeper into this topic, or you want to host your own brainstorm using the Apply Toolkit. Thank you very much for joining me today, and have a lovely rest of your afternoon, evening, or night.